Rise Up and Run. Stories of deliverance and transformation through the power of Jesus Christ that allows people to rise up from bondage and run in freedom. I'm your host, Janice. Man, I am glad to be back on another episode of Rise Up and Run. And my guest today is Kara Gage. Say hello, Kara.
Hello.
So I was thinking about her and I thought, what is one thing, like if I had to describe Kara in one word, it would just be fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Where she is, fun follows. And plug your TikTok thing. I don't know anything about TikTok.
It's my username is that Kara.
Is that Kara? Kara.
Yep.
And you have like tons of followers and stuff, don't you?
Oh yeah, I have a good time.
Yeah. So like, how do you gauge TikTok success?
Oh, I don't. I just do it for fun.
But do you have like, are you monetized or anything?
No, but I do have, like when you hit like so many followers, you can go live and then like get paid for it. So I've hit that where I can go live and get paid. It's like $30 an hour.
Oh.
But like, I don't know what I'm going to say. Like, I'm going to sit and do what? Like, some people like sit and cook. So it's just,
we could find something to do.
I mean, we could
split that 15-15.
Right, but see, I try to get my family to do it, but you know, Joe and the kids are just over me. TikToks. I'm like, come on, guys, we can have fun and do. They're like, no, we're not doing that.
The big eye roll.
Yeah.
So, and I thought we're probably going to have to take some laughing breaks in the middle of this, so we might have to edit out some things. But as with all of my guests, it seems like I met Kara at church.
Yeah.
And I just love her. She's just fun. She's a good person, a good mama.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're a great friend. Thanks. So tell us about your story. How did you grow up? What was life like in Caraville?
Well, when I was a kid, I had great parents. I mean, they made mistakes just like anybody did. Were never parents before, but I had parents, and then I had two sisters. And we grew up pretty Brady Bunch when I was younger, until I was about 11 or 12. And then life just kind of stopped as I knew it. My father had left my mother. They were together for 25 years, and he had... Just one day, I would spend the night at my friend's house. I'll remember this. And I came home, and I remember my mom crying, and I thought, what's happening? I'm 11 or 12 years old, and I noticed that my dad's closet was cleaned out. Mm. And she said, your dad has left for another woman. And I'm 11 or 12, like, I didn't know, what that meant. I just knew everybody was angry. And that's kind of where my anger started in life. I mean, my mom was a great person. She was a teacher at West High, and she was a substance abuse counselor later in life. But that was later. But she was a learning and disability behavior teacher at West High. And then my dad was a salesman, formerly in the Army. He was very OCD, strict, anger problem kind of man. But they were good parents. I mean, they taught us a lot of good stuff. But when my dad had left... everything just got real dark, I guess. I think that's where my abandonment issues all started.
I bet. Were you close to your dad? Were you like daddy's little girl?
No, I was the youngest. So, and my dad had two girls before me, and he always wanted a boy. So me and my sister Amy kind of had to do all the hunting and fishing.
You were the boy in girls' clothes.
Yeah. The hunting, the fishing, the cleaning the cars. I mean, I think he taught me how to change my oil when I was like 10 years old. I shot my first deer at 8.
Wow.
Yeah, like...
You're part boy.
Yeah, my sister Amy was too. My older sister, she was more bougie. She didn't... I mean, she liked to fish and everything, but the hunting and stuff she never did. But when my mom and dad had left, when they split up, I stayed with my mom. I had to go to my dad's every other weekend. It just was real rough.
I bet.
It was real rough. My dad kind of just was real self-involved with his new girl. And he'd, let our house go back to the bank. And, the sheriff would come to the door. And we had 3 days to get out. We had no idea what was going on. And he just really was kind of just left us behind really fast.
And I suppose that 10 or 11, you have no
idea that that's coming.
No.
You just...
No. And I don't know I don't know anything about it, So in my mind, when you're 10 or 11, this is what real life, normal life is. That's, and especially when you go from like almost like a Brady Bunch setting to trauma of where'd my dad go and why are these sheriffs here?
Well, yeah.
And now we don't have anywhere to live.
Nothing is secure. You
No.
can't feel secure.
Yeah. And he was pretty smart about it. My sisters were older. My sister Amy was 18 and my sister Tina was 22. So they were already, my oldest sister was already out of the house, but it just was real rough when I was younger from then on. I didn't have a lot of, I would say, parenting from there. Because my dad was more involved here and my mom was angry. And my mom was a very loving, wonderful person. But she got real depressed for a couple of years and she was real... I would go to my dad's for the weekend and he'd drill me about my mom. And then I'd go to my mom's house, go back to my mom's and she'd drill me about what my dad was doing. And it just... something a kid should probably never live through.
Sure.
That's why I always made sure, like with my kids, just don't talk bad about their dads. They'll figure it out, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't talk ill of the other parent.
No, that serves no purpose.
No. And then when I got a little older, about 14, again, I had no parenting guidance. My mom and my mom was naive. She didn't, I grew up with parents who never had tattoos, didn't cuss a lot. We went to church. I grew up at First Baptist on 5th Street.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to Awana's every Wednesdays at like Walnut Ridge and yeah.
Oh, Awana's is a great program.
It was great. It was a good program.
Our kids went through that and it's great.
Yeah, it was great.
Wow, I didn't know that about you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I grew up praying next to my bed before I went to sleep every night. All that stuff. That's what my mom's doing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older, I kind of I was introduced to drugs at about 14.
By classmates?
By some friends. And I've always been a wild
Oh,
child.
I don't doubt that for 1 minute.
I've always been a wild one. I've always been, they say, the black sheep of the family. I don't necessarily think I'm a black sheep because me and my sisters, we've always had a lot in common. Have just been the wild child.
Well, you seem like you're adventurous. Like,
yeah,
I'll do that.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I'll do it at least once.
Yeah.
Maybe twice.
Exactly. Yeah, my sisters definitely are not the same at all. My parents weren't either. They weren't. I don't know where I got it from, but I got introduced to drugs at a young age. I went to, I was in high school. I think I was about 14. And again, my mom had no clue, about any of it. She never even smoked pot or she never, did nothing. She barely drank. But...
and she's in her own world of grief and sorrow and worry and all of that.
And then she came after, a couple years later after that, she came through more of, what, I forgive your dad and what, she was more, I'm okay alone, and she was going on trips and she was doing stuff and it was, she got to her own self after a while. He was the only person she'd ever been with though. She died at 58.
Oh.
Yeah. She just was with him for 25 years and then just wanted to be with her kids and grandkids after that. Yeah. But she had no clue what I was doing ever.
Yeah.
And when you're young, when you're 14, 15, you're a liar. You're lying. And
especially if you're up to no good.
When you're up to no good, you're lying. Yeah, absolutely. And so it's funny because my kids, I have trust issues. And my kid, I'm like, I don't believe anything anybody says.
That's how I felt with our kids because Bob was a cop. I was a probation officer. I said, our kids don't stand a chance.
No, not at all. My daughter, who's 15, if she's a good kid, she doesn't run the streets. Yes, I know some things that she's done or whatever. She's honest with me now, so she tells me, but I just everything she says, I'm like, you're not doing that. No. She's like, why don't you ever believe me? I was like, cuz. She's like,
you're lying.
Yeah. And then she gives me the, I'm not you. And I was like, I said the same thing.
So you know all the ways.
All the ways. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, then when I was 16, I had gotten pregnant with my son, Gage.
Oh, Gage is really cute.
Gage is a cutie.
And he's going to be like...
He's a pain in my butt.
He's cute and he knows it.
Yes, he does know it. But I was in school. I was in high school. I worked at Dairy Queen.
Which one, the 5th Street?
No, the one on University.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The one on University, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but I was dealing drugs. I was I was in sports. I played softball for West High. I was in
Were you
band for
dealing
West.
drugs from the Dairy Queen?
No, I would never do that. No.
Like the drive-up window?
No. No, absolutely not. But yeah, I got pregnant, and I remember my coach was like, "What's going on? Like, why doesn't?" Because I was a catcher for West High, and he's like, "Why doesn't any of your gear fit?" I'm like,
Well, that's a bad question to ask a girl for any reason.
I know. And he's like, "It's just in my belly." He's like, I said, "Well, I'm pregnant." My poor mom worked at West High, so I mean, could you imagine the embarrassment?
Did she know?
Oh yeah, she
Okay.
knew. My coach is like, "You can't play softball."
Well, especially catcher. Talk
No,
about...
I know. And
Wow.
I'm like, what? Yeah. So, I mean, my whole junior year of high school, I was pregnant. And then I had him at the end of my junior year. And then had a baby my whole senior year.
Oh, so you continued the school.
Oh, yeah, I graduated.
good for
Yep.
you. Good for you. I'm glad.
Yep. And then, but the whole time, I'm just multitasking, being a mom and going to school and my addiction.
What kind of drugs were you using at that
Meth.
time? Oh, you were using meth in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
Meth.
crossed that bridge from... Do you think marijuana is a gateway drug?
I don't.
Don't you?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I used to smoke marijuana. I just don't think it is. And I guess I don't think it is these days because I've just seen so many people use it for anxiety and stuff.
It does have its purposes,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah. Anxiety. I mean, you don't ever hear somebody about getting in a car accident and killing somebody because they were on marijuana. You really don't hear that. It's where
You
alcohol
never
or
know.
drugs. Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, I don't think it is a gateway drug. But I've always been a partier. So, like...
Yes, you have. Even when you weren't using, you're just a party on wheels.
I lived with my mom, so I would put Gage to sleep. He'd go to sleep when he was a little older, and I would go out and I would be gone all night running the streets, and then I'd make sure that I was home before he woke up.
Wow.
So he never knew. I mean, I tried to hide my addiction from my kids a lot.
Sure.
Like I was a classroom mom, and
Isn't that something?
yeah, and so I tried to hide it a lot, and it's tiring and stressful. I mean, you don't really realize it when you're younger, but
Did your mom know?
no.
So she never said, where are you going?
No, she didn't know. And and this is back when you don't have cell phones. I mean, you had beeper. I had a beeper, I think.
Pagers.
Yeah, pager. Yeah.
We old.
Yeah, oh. Yeah, and then, she'd go to sleep, and then I would try to sneak in, like, right before, because she was a teacher at West. And at this time, she was a substance abuse counselor at Pathways, too, on the weekends.
What was her name?
Lana Gage.
Lana Gage. I never crossed paths with her.
Yeah. So on the weekends, she did the weekend package at Pathways when it was on Falls Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah. So here I am, in her basement, handing out the drugs, and
Isn't that something?
I put her through a lot, but when I was about Gage's dad lived with us too in the basement. And I had noticed there's the church like kitty corner from our house, and I had noticed police officers or undercovers or whatever watching my mom's house.
Oh.
And I told him, I said, well, I'm not doing this anymore. Like,
I assume Gage's dad was using too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, we have to stop or you have to go. Like, and he moved out. Closely after he moved out, he actually got caught doing some stuff. I can't remember what it was, but I remember we went to jail for drugs or whatever. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I'm choosing my kid over this. Like, this is my mom's house. What am I doing? So, yeah, he moved out, and then it was just me and my mom and Gage for a while.
Were you still using? Or did you quit?
Yeah, I was still using.
Okay.
But I wasn't making money, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was still using, and I was trying really, really my hardest to not. I finally went to college, and it was between nursing or welding. Well, welding was shorter, and it made money as nursing was longer. And so I went to welding school and got a welding degree.
I didn't know that. You are like half dude.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm
Oh,
telling
I'm
you.
learning so much about you. This is great. Keep talking.
I got a welding degree. I had my son Aiden in 2003. Gage was 6. He was a surprise, but I mean, he's just awesome. I love Aiden. He's the funniest one. I swear, this kid. He reminds me of me when I was younger because he just doesn't care. He doesn't. He just does what he wants, and that's it.
I love that. That's a great trait to have
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, and then I had Aiden about a year later. My son Gage we got diagnosed with diabetes. We almost lost him. Yeah, we almost lost him. That was pretty scary. He was in the hospital we were up Iowa City for a couple weeks, and
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty bad.
So he was only like probably 7.
He was like 6, 7, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep, now he's 27.
And he has some stories to tell too, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, he does. But, I mean, I tried. I'm not, everybody's not perfect. I mean, that was the first time I was parents. I was a single mom with 2 boys welding. I had stopped. My mom died in 2005. On April Fool's Day in a car accident.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so, and me and my mom were very close. I never went one day without talking to my mom, ever.
Wow.
She went to the store. She was like, she had her deviated septum done, and she had been down for a little bit. Well, this day she's like, hey, I'm going to go run some errands. Do you want to drive me? And I said, no, I'm going to wait for Gage to get off the bus. I got to wait for Gage to get off the bus. She's like, okay, whatever. She called me. She said, I'm going to grab some food on the way home. Do you want some? And I said, sure. And then she said, okay, I love you. I said, I love you too. Bye. And less than a minute later, she was dead. She had pulled out the Hammond. It's Hammond and Easton is that intersection.
Yeah.
There's lights there now. There's lights there because of my mom's accident. So she was at the stop sign and she pulled out and a car hit her and then another car hit her. Yeah. So I lived for a long time with her wanting me to drive her.
I bet you did.
And then that happened to her. And it was kind of crazy because it was the exact same time that there was a girl in Cedar Rapids, Jetsetta Gage. She had died. She was murdered by these 2 brothers. And then exactly a week later, Jason Gage was murdered in the Russell Lamson. And I had said to my mom, I was like, oh my gosh, everything happens in 3s.
Oh, no.
And she died that day. It's like.
Did you know the other Gages, though? Just a coincidence?
We didn't know Jetsetta, but we did know Jason, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Mom passed away suddenly.
Yep. So she was only 58. And then after my mom died, I got clean. And that's when I decided to date this guy that had been wanting to see, he's been wanting to date me for years and years and years.
Well, what's that like?
Well,
a little princess? Or
when it wasn't even like, it was a bad decision and I knew it because, listen, even from a young age, my man picker has always been broken. It has always been broken.
Oh, that's rich.
It's so bad that when me and my friends would go out and about and we'd be at the bar, we'd be having fun. And if I said a guy was cute, my friends would be like, nope, he's no good. We already know.
So you can't go by looks. You know that.
No. If I think he's the one, they're like, nope, you're wrong.
Okay,
Nope.
so this guy that wanted to date you, is that anyone I know? Is that
No.
Joe? Oh,
No,
that's not Joe.
no,
Okay.
Joe doesn't come.
Joe's
long time,
later.
Yeah. No, he wanted to date me, and I think I don't even know. So I'm like, okay, so we started dating. He moved in. I had to be in my friend's wedding this next day, and I was at the rehearsal dinner the night before he didn't want to go with. I don't know why he didn't want to go with, but he was a very jealous person, insecure. I was at my friend's rehearsal dinner. I came home. My kids were at a babysitter. They were at my sister's. And he wasn't there when I got home. I thought it was kind of weird, but so I got ready for bed. I think I fell asleep on the couch and I heard a big knock at the door. And I go to the door and I open up the door and there he is standing there paying the taxi driver and just boom, hit me right in the face. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm yelling at the taxi driver, like, please call the police. Like, she never did. She never called anybody. And so for literally 2.5 hours, and this was at like 2 o'clock in the morning, for like 2.5 hours, this guy tried to kill me in my home.
Oh my God.
Lamps over my head, stabbed me in the stomach, choked me. Like, it was terrible. And I had like this t-shirt on, and then I had like these fat girl shorts on you don't want anybody to see, you know, like clean and shorts. And it was like 2.5 hours later, and I remember standing in my kitchen, and he like had said, I'm bleeding from like my ears, my nose, my mouth, everything, and my stomach. And I remember him sitting down, and he looked up at me, and he was just like, it was just demonic. He's like, it's time. That's what he said. It's time. It's time for you to go. And I remember looking over and seeing my keys, and I just grabbed them. And this is something that I look back on now and think to myself, God was with me here. Because the courage that I had to grab them keys and run, it was out of my control almost.
Right.
I felt.
So when he said it's time for you to go, does he mean like leave the house, or did he mean
time for me to die?
Oh,
Yeah, he was like, it's time for, and he said the word.
Wow.
And so I remember grabbing my keys and I just ran out the door, and it was like an out of body experience. Like I didn't even know, like somebody else was moving my body. Like it was crazy. I get in my car and I'm backing up. It's like the movie, like he's on top of my hood.
Oh,
and I'm driving down the road and I'm like swerving, trying to get, now mind you, I have to be at my friend's wedding the next day. And I'm like swerving everywhere, and I'm just like, I'm trying to get him off. I get him off my car. I go down to the police station, and my whole neck was black and blue. And by the time I get down there, I can only whisper because my voice was, gone. And I remember going into the police station, and you like go into the one room where there's like chairs or whatever. And I'm ringing the bell, and this police officer comes, and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "I need to talk to somebody." I need to talk to somebody. And he's like, "Have a seat." And mind you, like, I am bloody.
Was that guy chasing you?
No, but I thought he was.
Well, yeah, you didn't know.
No. And this police officer he was coming out of the door, and he saw me, and he's like, "What are you doing out here?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I tried, I told him my story, gave my statement. They called the ambulance. The ambulance came and got me, took me to the hospital. We did CTs, and my nose was broke, my jaw was crooked. It was just a whole thing. And the next, by the time I got home, it was like 8 a.m. And my friend had called, and I was like, "If you don't want me to be in your wedding, I understand."
Because you were just probably...
I looked like I had been run over by a truck.
Well, you kind of have.
Yeah. And she's like, "No, like, you're going to be in it, no." And so, and he had called my phone, and he's like, "What happened?" This is what he says to me, "What happened?" I said, "What do you mean, what happened? Like, why are you calling me?" And then I said, "Where are you?" I'm at my parents' house. So I hung up the phone. And I hung up the phone, and I told my sister, I was like, "He's at his parents' house, and he's calling me." Then my sister called the cops, and they went over there, arrested him. He ended up getting like 5 years, did a couple years on that.
Wow. How scary.
Well, in my friend's wedding, she was marrying a Marine. And the guy that I had to walk down with had just had surgery on his leg. So he
Perfect
had a
match.
cane. He had a cane. So we just came up with all the great stories why we looked the way we did together. It was good. It was good.
Two misfits.
For real.
Down that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was my first real experience with like domestic violence. I wouldn't say I'm a domestic violence victim. I would say I'm just a survivor. I hate the word victim, really. I don't know why. I just do. Maybe because my father taught me to be strong, and you're not a victim of anything,
Right.
So.
Right, because you made it through. Victim
Right.
makes it sound like you kind of succumbed to the
Right.
thing, but you conquered.
Yeah. Yep. And, it's crazy, though, because after he moved out, I found, like, my phone records, like, hidden, and he, like, had things circled. Like, it was weird.
Oh, he was
It was like some
controlling.
Dateline episode. Like, it was...
I've watched all of them.
Me too. Me too. But, yeah. And then I got clean. I got clean off drugs. I wasn't on drugs. I got clean before this happened, but I got clean right before this happened.
What transpired? Like, what made you decide that was something that you wanted to do?
Well, losing my mother scared me pretty bad. Because I always had her I don't know, I just always had... She was my safe person, and I didn't have a safe person anymore. Mm-hmm. It was just me and my kids. And so I had to be my kids' safe person.
Some people, that would have just turned the other way.
Right.
You would have gone right back, hot and heavy and worse.
No, I mean, I was a drinker. I'll tell you that. Like, I was quite the drinker during the 13 years I had clean. I drank, but I could always... You can always justify it because it's okay in society eyes to drink.
Yeah, it's legal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And everybody, you don't go through a drive-thru and buy meth. You can go to a store and buy beer,
Right.
And I would be okay, like, every night after work. I'd have a few beers and make dinner and whatever. On the weekends, I'd party with my friends. And, I mean, it's just what it was. But I just didn't, I don't know, I just didn't want to... I didn't want to subject my kids to meth either.
Right.
It's a horrible drug. Horrible drug. After all that happened, and then I just, life just went by. Was it nothing? I mean, I had a lot of fun.
And you had 2 kids at that point?
Yeah, Gage and Aiden. Me and Gage would research and fight a lot about his diabetes and learn, we went through some struggles through the years with that. But then I had met my husband. I knew him since 6th grade, but we kind of rekindled later in life. I think I was like 29 maybe. And again, my favorite color must be red because I never see red flags, but I should.
You are a bad picker.
I know.
You need a matchmaker.
I know. But, all these, I don't know. I think I just yearned for the family that I had when I was a kid.
Yeah, sure.
I yearned for the mom and the dad and the kids and it's the great, just the family stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when I got with Bobby's dad, we got married. We moved out to this farmhouse. We got married. And it was, I tried my hardest because we had my kids and then his kids, and then we had a daughter together. Mm. And, I tried to even justify everything, like what he would do wrong or whatever. I was always justifying everything for him. And it just didn't work out the way, violence started happening, toxics happening. He was an alcoholic. He drank all day, every day. And, I mean, I'm not perfect. I drank a lot with him. Mm-hmm. But it would be more like at night, kids go to bed, then, whatever. But then we ended up starting to fight about stuff. And he just needed a lot of attention from other people. And then he ended up going to prison. And I was done. And I think that's where I spiraled a lot because I had no hope that I was ever going to find a person for me. Mm-hmm. They're all the same. They fake the funk at the beginning, and then they show their true colors. And I'm a loyal person. I've always been a loyal person. My mother taught me to be a loyal person. So once I love somebody, I really love them. Mm-hmm. And I love them hard, and I'm loyal. And there's a lot of things I shouldn't let happen, but I'm strong. So, and I'm a forgiver. So I'm a person who can think outside the box and go, well, this can happen. I can save him. I can save them all. Mm-hmm. No, you can't save them. Mm-hmm. And then when he went to prison, I, went back to drinking and partying, being out. And my son Gage was older at this time. I think he was like 16, probably 17. And I would be out drinking with my friends all night. Well, then he started having parties at my house. Mm. Yeah. So then it was like a cycle. Like I wasn't parented at a certain age. And then Gage kind of wasn't parented at a certain age.
And you were able to recognize that?
Yeah, later in life. Oh, no,
later?
not at that point I didn't. No, at that point I just, I justified everything. But later in life, obviously, when I sobered up, I'm like, it was a total cycle, And Gage was a lot like me. As a kid, he was wild, and you couldn't tell him nothing, and he does what he wants, and that's it. When you get your mind on something, you do it.
Must be hereditary.
It must be. Yeah, like we had a falling out, really bad, and I had to kick my son out, a diabetic child who was on drugs. He was 16 years old, and I had to kick him out because we were fist fighting.
Wow.
Yeah, like you have to learn some respect. I'm not having, and then talk to him for 6 months. Like all these things will give you trauma to yourself, and not being able to talk to your child, a diabetic child on drugs, is really hard.
Because that's a horrible combination.
Yeah.
So were you using meth again, or
No.
did you just stick with drinking? Did you ever go back to meth?
I did.
Okay.
I did. So I started dating Joe Bondi.
Joe Bondi?
The Joe Bondi. And I would be drinking and whatever, and I'm not one who, I don't like to drink and drive. I'm not a person who drinks and drives. And Joe would pick me up, and we'd end up going to like somebody's house he knew, which would be like a trap house.
And so that's like a drug house, right?
Right.
Because what did they call it back in the day when I was a probation officer? It wasn't a trap house. Maybe it was like a crack house.
Maybe,
or something.
yeah, something. I'm not sure.
The terms have changed. I have
Trap
to stay
must
up
be
on
more
things.
bougie.
I don't know. Maybe because crack doesn't encompass meth.
Right.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
How did you meet Joe?
Oh, Janice, I knew you were going to ask me that.
Oh, is it embarrassing? No. Okay, well, you don't have to tell me if it puts you in a bad light.
I'm just going to put it this way. Joe and my first husband, Bobby, knew each other.
Okay, we'll just let our imagination.
Yeah, we're just going to leave it like that.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll just leave it that way. But they knew each other. And then that's why I relapsed with Joe.
Oh.
Yeah, I relapsed with Joe. After 13 years clean, I relapsed with Joe. And
what makes that happen? You think after 13 years you are solid, What makes a person go back after that long thinking I can handle it, or
person probably with an alcohol problem and abandonment and trauma issues. I don't know. Like because when I used to use drugs because for one, I didn't have to feel nothing. I didn't have to feel nothing about what my father did to my mom, what our dad was, be angry to us, or you don't have to think about any of that stuff. You don't have to feel any of that stuff. You know how addiction works.
Yeah.
So then this guy that I married that I thought was going to be, we're going to, have this great family and do all these things. And I just was angry. So I just, I don't want to feel that either.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't want to feel none of that. I don't even want to remember any of it. And that's just, it happens that quick. That's why I tell people, they ask me all the time, like, how'd you do it? I'm like, listen, you can't get cocky about addiction because, after 13 years, I relapsed after 13 years. You'd think I'd be the strongest I've ever was.
Right.
Yeah, no.
It happens.
It happens.
A lot.
That's why they tell you never to say never. Mm-hmm. Because it can happen whenever.
Yeah, it sure can if you let your guard down. You got to be vigilant.
And I hadn't healed from anything either.
Yeah,
and I can honestly say now I could probably absolutely say never. I will never do drugs again. The Lord has taken the urge from me, and He also has taken even the feelings of doing it. Like I can say that on a normal daily basis, I don't think about it. I don't urge for it. I don't anything. And I feel like some days I feel like I've never even done drugs.
Good.
Yeah. And AA and NA help people. They really do help people. And I just wasn't, they help a lot of people. I just wasn't into it. I don't know why. I think it's because we talked about it so much as I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. And AA is what saved Bob's life.
Yeah.
And made him sober, but it's just not for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
And that's okay.
And I believe that Christ is what really set me free from it and saved me. Absolutely.
Well, go back
100%.
to meeting Joe Bondi and all the trouble he caused you.
Okay,
that
so
little rascal.
Yeah, I know. So, and Joe was wild at the time, but Joe also was the one who, just he paid attention to me, and he paid attention to the little things. He paid attention. We had fun. We had a lot of fun. Joe, and I tell Joe this too. I'm like, you know how to get a girl, but sometimes you don't know how to keep them.
I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah. So Joe has his own trauma and his own ways of growing up and what he thought relationships are supposed to be and what they aren't and what happened. And, so getting we connected really fast. We had a lot of great times together. The first 2 years was great. And we used, which wasn't good. That's not the great part about it. I think it was more of I thought our spirit connected. I thought that we really knew each other. And then it all went downhill from there.
What happened? Was there a thing that happened?
Yes. There was Joe did a lot of cheating. He did a lot of abuse. There was a lot of abuse, a lot of cheating.
Physical abuse?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mental and physical, verbal and physical. And so he had those first 2 years, he had me on a stronghold of, I seen the person that, I wanted him to be still. And it doesn't help that now I'm on drugs. And when you're on drugs, you have a compulsive disorder. People on drugs, on meth especially, have a compulsive disorder. So I was like obsessed with finding out what he was doing, when he was doing it, who he was doing, just unhealthy ways. And he would he would leave for days at a time. And it came to, I would say, about 4 years into my addiction with him, 4 or 5 years, and because it will be 4 years clean. So about 4 years into our addiction with him, we lived in this house over by, we had been raided. Let me back up here. We've been raided 3 times. So we got raided in 2018. We got raided in 2019 and 2020.
Okay, how did he stay out of prison?
They never caught us with anything.
Oh.
The last time that we got raided, there was a gun in the safe. And our friend who had a gun license and all that, he said it was his, and we had just moved into this house. This is the 3rd raid. The 2nd raid. I don't know.
How many kids were living with you guys then? So
Bobby and Jaslyn had been through every single one of them with me.
Okay, so did Joe have 6 kids at that time then?
Yeah, Joe's had all his kids, yeah.
But you've got 3.
I have 3 and Joe has 6, yeah. And my daughter Bobby and his daughter, the youngest, Jaslyn, they lived with us. But the first one, it was me and the girls, and we were in a car. They pulled us over. They took Joe downtown. And then they, said, we're looking through your house and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't find anything. And then the second one was, they came in real crazy. Joe wasn't there. It was me and the girls again. And they came in they had suits. All you could see is their eyeballs and, guns and shields. And it was trauma. It was very traumatic. It was like the movies.
What did the girls say about how that affected them?
It's trauma. They've been through a lot. These girls have been through a lot. So, and then the third time, they kind of I had left to take Bobby to school, and Joe had left to go to school, and they got him at school, and they called me and said, go unlock your door, basically, we're looking through. Well, when we had moved into the house, the second one, there was a gun in the safe, and our buddy said it was his, because we had just moved in. He's like, I threw it in there, whatever, I don't know the combination. I thought that maybe we can't get it out. Joe got charged with that. They waited a year through the 3rd raid to charge him with it. But it's just the trauma that I went through with Joe and the trauma that I put my kids through, I kept using because I didn't want to feel what he had done. I didn't want to feel what I had done, the guilt I put my kids through. It was so bad, Janice, that we lived behind Rudy's Taco. And Joe was gone all the time, that I moved out I got my own place. It was probably like, I don't know, 6 blocks away or something. I moved out, and Joe didn't even know I was gone for like 3 weeks.
So Joe was on another podcast.
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah.
Burnett's, yeah.
So Kara's partner Joe has a great story too, and he was on Nick Barnett's podcast called Domestic Dad. So if you want to hear Joe's story, listen to that. But he mentioned that too. It was like, something's not right here. And then he realized you guys had been gone for a
when we were
month.
gone. Well, and I had taken my daughter. I couldn't take his kids right away because, he was very evil then. Joe was very evil. And he would have called the cops on me of kidnapping his kids just to be spiteful. So I would have to, and I moved like 6 blocks away. So in the morning, I went and picked them up, made sure they got to school. I would constantly be dropping food off every day, make sure that they had food, make sure they were eating. And at this time, unfortunately, their mom had relapsed. So she was kind of in the streets too and homeless. And, she wasn't doing good either, which she's gotten clean and she's doing amazing now. She has for years now. But I would make sure that they had eaten and went to school and got home from school. And Christmas, I made sure they had gifts. And it was a lot.
And all this time you're still using meth.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm working.
You're amazing.
And I'm working 40 hours at this job. And it was just it was rough. And Joe's just not around, or he's got he's just with people he shouldn't be with, know. And it came to the point where there's just more trauma and abuse every day. And it was just terrible, So I just kept using. And when Joe told his PO that he was on drugs and he needed to go to treatment, and that was great. And then when he came out of treatment, he's like, I can't go back to that house. I can't take my kids back to that house. Which, the person I am, I'm like, of course not. Of course not. Like, you're never going to succeed at that house. So I had them move into my house. Did I want Joe to move into my house? Absolutely not.
But you're that kind of a person, though.
Yeah, and I thought of the kids a lot. I'm like, well, where are they going to go? They've been through enough. Like, where are they going to go?
You're so kind-hearted. Some people would have been like, they're your kids, you deal with them,
Yeah,
but you're just so kind.
I'm like, come on, so they came to live with us. Well, at this time, Joe was clean and I was still using behind his back.
So when Joe went to treatment, then did he stay clean after that?
He's been clean ever since. Yeah, he went to Pathways and he did his jail time, and then he went to Pathways. And then he came to my house, and there's a couple months, like Joe got clean in March, I got clean in May. So for about 2 months, I was getting high behind his back.
Were you still a couple then, or just kind of two people?
We went right back to couple, yeah.
Couplehood.
I mean, yeah, it was. We didn't really connect, but you
were still an item.
Yeah.
So how does that work? And was Joe like, don't use? I can't be with you if you use.
Of course he's like, you're getting high. No, I'm not.
There's the lies again.
Yeah, and I think I would like I would try to like gaslight him like he did. Like when he was doing bad stuff, he'd always gaslight. I would literally be seeing him do it, and he's like, "You're crazy. You don't see that." Like, what?
Oh.
And he knew. I mean, he knew. I think he just didn't know what to do with me at this point. Like, he had no idea what to do with me, and we'd fight, and I'd be like, "You're crazy. Like, I'm not getting high." Blah blah blah. Because I do have ADHD, and I'd be all over the place. Well, obviously drugs make you do that too.
Yeah.
And I would be like, "You're crazy. Blah blah blah. I'm not on drugs. Leave me alone."
How did you feel? Did you feel like, oh, I want to quit, or this guy's gonna come back to drugs?
No, I was scared. I was scared to death to quit, because I knew that once I quit doing drugs, I was going to have to go back from day one and feel every single thing that Joe had done to me, every single guilty thing I had done to, I mean, I have great friends that didn't ever use drugs, and I hadn't talked to them in years because they were finally cut me off. Mm-hmm. And the guiltiness, my friend, her brother died. And we were all very close, like family. And he died. Tommy, sorry if I'd start crying, but Tommy died, and I didn't even go to the funeral because I was so self-involved in drugs. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that, like, I would have to feel all these things for my friend and her mom, because her mom was like my second mom, and I wasn't there for any of it, any of them. I had a friend that called me when I was at the funeral, and she's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm not coming." Like, I was out of town doing, I don't know what I was doing. Like, just self-involved. And
It's a very selfish, addiction is very selfish.
it is very selfish. And then when you're addicted to a person along with drugs, that makes it 10 times worse. I think I was addicted to Joe at that point because I had abandonment issues, obviously, from parents and people. And, you know, I had a lot of issues. So when I grabbed onto him, I got addicted to that. Mm-hmm. It was almost like, I don't know, I just couldn't break from it. And so when I was getting high behind his back, I was very disrespectful to him. I had a lot of resentment and anger. And
Did you think, oh, he'll be back? He'll be back using again?
No, I didn't.
You
Nope.
thought okay.
No, I didn't think that. No, I knew, I could tell he was different. But I have trust issues. I always have. And I just was like, you've done too much damage to us. Like, I didn't look at him the same. I didn't want to hug him. I didn't want to, but I had this like Stockholm syndrome bond with him that I felt like I had to take care of him.
Yeah.
It's really strange. But then a couple months later, I went and had drinks with a friend, and that was the last time I used. And I went home, and I was just like, I am done. I'm done. I don't like the people that it comes with. I don't like the feeling of it. I just was done. And I spent about a week in my bedroom in the basement, sick and emotional. And of course, I still wouldn't tell the truth. I'm telling, I just got the flu, Joe. I just got the flu. And he's looking at me like, I know exactly. He knew exactly what was going on.
He knows better than anyone.
Yeah, I just couldn't take accountability for it at all. And I couldn't tell it. Because then I feel like if I did that, then I would be no better than him. Mm. Which is a terrible way to think.
Well,
but that's
you can't help what you think.
No, and that's it. And I was just so angry, and I didn't care about respecting him at all, And I was just so bitter. And I was at that point where I was like, well, whatever. You don't have feelings because you didn't care about mine, Mm-hmm. Which does not make it right.
Right.
Obviously, but. And then.
So had Joe found Jesus?
No.
By then?
Joe hasn't found Jesus yet. But the best part of it with Joe finding Jesus is I always knew Jesus was real. I grew up in church. And his kids, like his daughter, like, they went to a church thing or something, and she came back and she was real interested in it. And I remember her saying something about it. Joe's like, Jesus isn't real. And I looked at her, and I remember looking at her, and I remember putting my arm around her and going, yes, he is. Don't listen to your dad. Don't listen to him. Jesus is real. And I just was, Joe had a lot of, his own demons.
Sure.
So he was angry in life too. I just remember being like, no, Jesus is real. And so, and it never really came up. And so, and then after he got clean and then I got clean, and we moved a lot in our addiction. Like, we moved a lot. We moved like 13 times in 8 years.
Is it because you got like evicted?
Oh, Joe would take the rent money and do whatever with it, or I wouldn't have this, or we'd get robbed, it was just, I can't make this stuff up.
It's a very interesting story for sure.
Yeah. But so we moved a lot. And then after I got clean, we went through a lot of struggles still, financially and trying to find our spot. But I found a little bit of like just peace because there wasn't anybody at our house. No, people weren't coming over. I didn't have to worry about things being stolen. I didn't have to, worry about a lot of stuff. But I was very angry still and bitter. And I wouldn't say bitter, just resentful.
Yeah.
And for years, even when Joe came out of treatment till, I don't know, 2 years ago, I didn't even want to be with Joe anymore. But something kept telling me to stay. Like, and I know now it's God, but God kept telling me to stay. Like, I would have it planned. Like, I'm moving out. I'm not dealing with him. I don't want to deal with him. And like, it came to the point where I just rebelled against Joe. Everything he said, even if he was right and I knew it was the best for us, I didn't want to hear nothing he had to say about it. I was just like real rebellious to him, and I just didn't, like, he had an idea and it might have been fun and great. And I was like, no, I ain't doing it. Like just a child. But then we moved over to the house that we're in now, which we've been in there for quite a while now, and it's nice. We're stable, and, you know, I mean, we worked really, really hard after we both got clean. We worked really hard on trying to rebuild our kids' outlook on life and how life is really supposed to be. You know, and they rebelled against us too, which you can't blame them. I mean, they went through a lot. They went through a lot before I even got with Joe, like his kids did, you know, like it was just, we just made a lot of bad decisions. Everybody's come around now, which is, it's very hard. I mean, it's great. It's great. I think we're not perfect, obviously, but kids need consistency to trust. So we just stay consistent. And it's nice because a lot of them have started to come around, and mostly, actually, all of them have. It's 9 of them, so.
It's a flock.
Yeah, so
a big flock of kids.
Yeah, so we moved in, Matt Miller, he came out, and Matt Miller used to live with us when we all used to. He used to live in our basement, and he was just always there. Matt just always was around.
You have like a lot of people living at your house, don't you?
Oh, we did. We had a lot of people living at our house. Even when we were on drugs, we had so many people in our house that I would feed the streets. So when people would come over, I was always cooking something. Because my mom was just always... My mom was a very good hostess, I would say. So she always fed people and made sure everybody's comfortable. So it was just in my nature to feed people. And I would feed people, and they'd take a nap at our house, or Joe would give them clothes and they'd take a shower. And, you know, like, we just took care of people.
You did.
Yeah,
Even in the middle of all that.
Yeah, and on holidays, on Christmas and Thanksgiving, I'd make huge meals. And we'd tell people, if you don't have anywhere to go, if you don't have anything to eat, come to our house and we'll feed you. And people would be in and out all day just feeding, and, you know, they're eating and then they're going. And so our first year, not in the streets like that, Joe had a really hard time with it. Joe, we woke up Thanksgiving morning. This is our first year of being clean. And Joe, I said, what's wrong? And he just kind of started crying. He was like, where's everybody going to go for Thanksgiving?
Oh.
And he's like, I don't know what to do. And I said, honey, I know that you're upset about it. And I know that but we can't bring them here. This is part of our sobriety. Like, we can't invite people that are using to our house. And he knew that. But it was just really hard for him not to feed everybody. Like, he wanted to almost like make food and drop it off these houses. That's too dangerous for us. You know, we can't do that.
Well, you have to put up those boundaries to protect your sobriety. Right. And that was a good call.
Yeah. Yeah. But we are now, and Matt Miller is living with us. And Matt was going to church. And he was like going to church with this girl. And I had heard about Hope City from my friend Sarah Workmeister. For like
Sarah.
Yeah.
Don't you love Sarah?
I love Sarah. For years, you know, she'd always talked about it. She always wanted me to go to church. But I dated an atheist, somebody who didn't believe in God, you know. So when my mom died, I lost my faith. And she was in the hospital because she was going to be an organ donor. My dad had come down, and he was sat next to my mom and sat by her side and didn't leave my mom.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was a core memory to me of humanity, I guess I should say. Like,
yeah.
He sat next to her and bawled and kept you could tell he just was so full of remorse. And he held her hand and he sat there with her. And then he stayed with me that night that, you know, took her organs and stuff. And I remember we're sitting there talking. We're going through pictures of my mom and when we were younger. And my dad started to cry. And my dad was a person, he was a military-based type of man. He didn't cry. He didn't show emotions, but tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him going, I'm so sorry that I did this. And I said to him, you know Mom forgave you, right? And he says, he said, I'm so sorry. And I said, I don't know. And then he asked me if Mom forgave him. And I said, I don't know. This was later that I told him Mom forgave him because I didn't really realize it then. Mm-hmm. And so he was there with her. Well, when my dad, later in life, you know, my dad had a stroke and I think it took away his manhood a little bit because he couldn't get around. My dad was very controlling and very just independent. So he couldn't get around much. And so he was very emotional a lot. And we went there for Thanksgiving, and that's when he asked me about my mom, and I told him that mom had forgiven him. And he died on Gage's birthday. It was 8 years ago? No, 11 years ago. 11 years ago.
So back to Matt Miller.
Yeah, so Matt Miller, so he was going to church, and Joe's like, so we're going to go to breakfast. And we get in the car, and I'm like, where are we going? Because we weren't heading. He's like, we're going to church. And I said, what? You're lying. You know, like, you're not going to church. Good joke. And he's like, no, we're going to church. And I go, I look like crap. Like, I don't, like, what do you mean? He's like, Jesus loves you anyways, right? And I'm looking at him like, what has happened overnight? Like, what is this? This is strange. You know,
So did he know Jesus then?
No.
Okay, he was maybe just playing around.
He was trying to spy on Matt.
Yeah.
He's like, why isn't Matt introducing us to this girl? And I'm just looking at Joe like, is this another one of your shenanigans? You know, like, I have followed you through some stuff in life. And so we go to church, and Janice, it is the most surreal thing I think I've ever seen. So we sit at church, and we're like behind Matt. Like, he's like over kitty corner. So like we're sitting. I remember exactly where we're sitting too. I could show you.
So Matt didn't know you were there spying on him.
No. And so we stand up and worship starts. And the song Make Room starts playing. And it starts playing, and I could feel some like energy, or I don't know how to explain it. And I look over, and Joe is bawling, and he's trembling. His body is shaking. It is the I have goosebumps thinking about it, talking about it. It's the most bizarre thing I have ever seen. And I remember touching his back, and he's like vibrating. That's the only way I can describe it. He's like vibrating. I'm like, are you okay? Because Joe isn't one that likes to be embarrassed. You know, he doesn't, you know, he's crying. I just can see the look on his face. Like, he just has no control over it. He doesn't know what to do. I said, do you want to go? And he's like, he just shook his head no. And I'm like, okay. So it was through the whole hour, he bawled through every song, every word Q said, everything. He bawled, and he trembled through the whole hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And mind you, he was like sick before. Like, he was having a lot of stomach issues. I think it was stress. It was like, we didn't know what was wrong with him. We were like going to the doctor and doing all kinds of stuff. And he said he felt great. And then he started feeling bad again. And then next Sunday, we going back to church.
Wow.
And it's, you know, his kids are just like, whatever. Like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, talk about a stretch.
Yeah. Like, and the only thing I can say, and this is probably very harsh to say, but the only way I can describe is people really don't know the monster Joe used to be. And I hate to use that word because it's very harsh.
But it's probably true.
But it's very true. Like, he literally, God is real. You know, like, he went from this to the person he is now.
Yeah.
And even then, even after he found God and we were coming to church, and, you know, it was great. I was still very angry. I never healed. Really bitter, really angry inside, really rebellious. And Joe really was on fire for Jesus. And even things that he wanted to do that I used to do, but I didn't want to follow him because I just wasn't going to give it to him. No, I'm not doing that.
Had your guard up.
Yeah, bad.
Did you think it was for real, or did you think it was a phase?
Well, at first, like, experiencing it, I'm like, something happened here. 100%. And Joe is a true, I don't know. Joe is extra. I always tell him he's extra. Because he goes in with both feet. I mean, he's one of those people that when he's in it, he's in it. There's no middle gray area with Joe. It's bad or it's good. And I just noticed when he started, we were volunteering at the church. We were helping out. We were serving. He got a Bible. I catch him reading his Bible. And, you know, I thought it was like, at first I'm like, I really hope. I was being positive because I'm like, I really hope this isn't like one of those, you know, some people will go to jail and then all of a sudden they love Jesus and they came out and it's, you know, I was just hoping that it wasn't a phase. And then the more it progressed, I mean, it progressed fast. Within the first month, I'm like, he really he really felt it. Like,
Yeah.
this is a real deal. And, you know, of course he got a lot of hate from people, and his kids were really combative to him, which you can't blame them. You know, they were like questioning him a lot, and they'd really argue with him about God a lot, and they would really like test him.
Yeah.
I think because they probably thought it was a phase too, you know, but because he would get clean and then he'd relapse, and you know, but
Well, to go from, like you said, a monster. I mean, I didn't know him then, but I've seen those pictures. I think you posted pictures
Yeah.
of him before and after.
yeah, a video.
Oh, he just looked
Terrible.
evil.
Yeah.
He
And that's
just
what
looked
he was.
scary.
He was just evil.
And now it's like, yeah.
And something kept just telling me, like, just stay. It was God. Just stay a little longer. Just even
Yeah.
up to 2 years ago. We'll be clean. It'll be 4 years now. Even up to 2 years ago, I still was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I didn't want to, you know, like with my daughter,
You can't do what?
be with him. I didn't want to be with him. I'm like, I can't show my daughter to be with somebody who did this to him. And then, you know, you don't want to show it's okay for a man to treat you like this.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was really hard for me, and I had a lot of guilt with that with my daughter. Luckily, Miss Bobby sure does take care of herself, and she doesn't put up with nothing. But
Miss Bobby.
Yeah.
I like Miss Bobby.
but she, you know, and I wasn't there. Like, I didn't. And the more he progressed, and the more that he got into the Word, and the more that his soul changed, I still wasn't. You know, and I was like, oh, well, we'll see how this works. We'll
Yeah.
see how this works. And it was a couple years ago, or it was a year, maybe it was, I don't know. I'm not good with the time.
That's okay.
People are always like, they was like 2019. I'm not good with time. But a while back when he first started Rise Up,
Yeah.
it was one night before Rise Up, and I had to tell him, like, I don't want to be with you. I'm not attracted to you. You did too much damage to me. You put me down too much. You did a lot of damage.
So you still felt that way?
Still felt that way. Yeah.
Wow.
And normally Joe would have got mad and broke stuff and like held me in the house and wouldn't let me leave or something, you know, like that's and he sat next to me and he looked at me and he started crying and he was like, if you're not happy, I can go. If you don't want to be with me, I just want you to be happy, Kara. So whatever I need to do to help you be happy, I'll do it. And then I was like, what? I said, no, I'm all confused.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I can still hear that voice in my head going, just wait. It's gonna, you know, the things you pray for will wait. They'll happen, you know. And so, and I'm glad I told him that because he wasn't, you know, because people don't realize that just because you're doing good in life doesn't mean, like, Joe, you did 6 years, 5 years worth of damage. And you being a good man, trying to be a godly man for a year does not make up for
Right.
5 years of damage. And just because you're here now and you're present and you treat me a different way and you treat the kids a different way, it still doesn't make up for it, you know?
It takes time to not forget that, but to heal from
it,
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I still was like, okay, you know, I'll help come serve. I love to serve.
Yes, you do.
I'll come serve. I'll come help. You know, Joe's doing this and that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing everything you want to do. I've lived your life. I've lived your life for the last how many years. I'm not doing that anymore. And he could see that I was combative and rebellious. And he stuck with me with it too. And I know there had to been some point in his head when he went on with his journey and I wasn't caught up with him. And we were almost in like a spiritual warfare type of thing. Like, I'm like, you're here, I'm here. Like, we're not at the same place anymore. That I know, I'm sure went through his head too. Like, this isn't going to work out, you know? Because I used to think about it a lot. Like, I don't want to do all that. And he's doing this and I'm doing, you know, and I'm over here like, I want to be left alone. And Joe loves chaos. Joe loves chaos, and he loves to be in the middle of the chaos, and he loves to help a lot of people. I love helping people. I don't like the chaos. Mm-hmm. You know, like he's doing Future. And I said,
Future is our junior high, senior high kids program.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
said, great. Well, Jordan has talked me into doing Kid City. I will do Kid City with them walker and talkers. I'm not doing future. I said, bless all of you.
I always used to say I'd rather work with convicted felons than children.
For real. You know? But, you know, and we're in two different places. Like,
Did you feel like you could be? Like that was okay? Like
No, I didn't, because Joe was pressing. Joe's very, like, not controlling, but he tries to be very persuasive. He likes, you know, like, hey, will you do it? No, I'm not. And so we butted heads. And I'm like, for one, I don't want to. And it's probably the right thing to do. And even if I wanted to do it, I still was rebellious, so I still wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. It was
just stubborn. I like a good stubborn woman.
It was like a child, you know. And then the more he told me I could do something, the more I wanted to do it. You know, like it was terrible. But like, we were going in different places, and I don't know. One day I woke up and I'm like, okay. After he did that, and he was like, okay, I'll leave. Give me a little bit to find a place. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see where this goes. You know, I was so shocked. And then I started to get in the Word by myself. I didn't want him to know. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't want him to know that I was in my FedEx truck reading, you know, listening to the Bible. I didn't want him to know that. Like, that would give him, like, satisfaction in my, you know, like, just, I'm a brat. I was being a brat. And so, you know, I'm listening to worship music, and, you know, we're going to church, and I'm doing all this stuff. Like, I don't need you to know what I'm doing, you know, whatever. He was mentoring under Jeff Swartzendruber and his wife, Pat, which I love them. They're great people. So he was mentoring under Jeff Swartzendruber, and his wife, Pat, had bought me a Bible, and she asked, you know, if I would, you know, looking for a mentor or anything. I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. You know, I'm good. I got this. I believed in God my whole life. Like, you know, but when you believe in God, when you're a child, to losing faith and then finding it again when you're an adult, it's absolutely 100% different.
Mm-hmm. Were you say that you had been a Christian, like accepted Christ as a child, or was that not a thing?
Nope. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I've
been
a Christian.
saved.
Yep. My whole life.
You just wandered.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was just like, no, you know, I don't need that, you know, whatever. And Margaret at church, I love Margaret. She was trying to get me into stuff too. And I'm just like, no. Her Mindy, I know, because they'd be looking at me like, girl. I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. And then the women conference came up. This wasn't last year. This is the year before. And Joe's like, you should go to the women's conference. I said, what am I going to do at that women's conference? He said, what? I go, I don't have anything in common with them women. I said, what am I going to do? Sit around and talk about Jesus? I'm not doing that. Like, I was such a brat, and I was so angry in life. And then I started, you know, I was in my FedEx truck, and I'm starting to listen to worship music and starting to get in the Word again. And a lot of stuff, like, I would read, and I was like, it all came back to me from Moana's and, you know, everywhere. Like, I already know this. I know this. Obviously, I'm still a baby Christian. I feel like I am, because I don't know a lot. But, and then I think Joe could see me. And then I kind of was doing a lot of my own healing from Joe, and the Word just, it gave me that. I'm really big in psychology. I like psychology. It gave me that therapy to heal through. Like, it's okay, Kara. It's okay to forgive. It's okay to accept somebody. It's okay to put your guard down. It's okay to be this way and to be that way. It's okay. You know, because in my mind, I was like, I don't care. You did this to me. You did that to me, and blah, 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 blah. And I was just, you know, really throwing it in his face. And I don't care about your feelings because you did this to me, you know, like, just like a brat. Mm-hmm. And the Word really helped me as I got into it, and it helped me. And then I finally told Pat I was ready. And she's been mentoring me for a while now, and she's really helped me a lot.
Good.
She's really helped me a lot. We do, you know, every Monday we meet, and we talk about life and we talk about the Bible, and she gives me, things to work on through the week. And she really has made me more humbled. And so the more I get through it, the more I'm more humbled with Joe, and I'm more healing with Joe. And we've decided now, and I trust him. And it's amazing because going from our story of domestic violence and using and the trauma that he put us through, it's very rare that you come out the other end with the same person.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is like, you totally have two different people.
Yeah.
Joe the user, Joe the gangster, Joe
Right.
the crazy dude, and now Joe the Christian, the leader, the one people look up to. It's like two different people that you had to fall in love with again.
Right. And I definitely love this Joe. Real. I think, like the other Joe, like I said, I was on drugs, so I was compulsive. I mean, I love Joe. Obviously, I've loved Joe for years. But the compulsiveness of being addicted to him and having like this weirdness of having to take care of him and the kids, like it was terrible. It was trauma. And now this Joe, I have freedom with this Joe. And this Joe it's real. And I think I have fallen in love with him a lot recently because he really wants our family. He's always trying to make our family better. He's always trying to make our lives better.
Well, your family has like taken over the church.
What do you mean?
Well, like, just like when your family's been baptized, your kids have been baptized.
Yeah.
All of them? I think.
Of them. Well, mostly all of them.
And your baby daddy.
I know my ex-husband, Joe.
What the heck?
Joe baptized him too. Yeah, I mean, there's
This is an interest. This is like a tangled web.
Well, so Joe has 6 kids. His oldest one, both of our first childs are named Gage. He has a Gage and I have a Gage, like a year and a half apart. And he's unfortunately locked up again. He took a lot of Joe's ways and has just really stuck to him. And it's really hard on Joe. It's really hard on Gage's mom. And it's hard on Gage's daughter. Like, he's just not getting it. But we just pray that he will someday. We just hope and pray that he will understand that it's not the ways. And then he has a daughter, Deanna, who she's very independent.
Oh, she's the one in Texas?
Yeah, she's the one in Texas. Yeah. She's a very independent girl. Little entrepreneur, makes her own jewelry. She's a go-getter.
Nice.
Deanna's a go-getter. I love Deanna. I've always had a good relationship with Deanna, even before I was with Joe, because I knew them. She goes out there and she just does what she wants, and she's independent. She's a good girl. And then he's got a daughter, Charlie. She lives in Jessa or Gilbertville, and she has.
I didn't know.
Yeah, she has a daughter named Hazel. Now Charlie and Deanna really were mad at Joe for a long, long, long time and wouldn't talk to him, and they were, Charlie wouldn't let him around her daughter, and it was just, you can't blame him because he'd do one thing and then he'd relapse, and then they didn't trust anything he said, which is amazing now to watch God put everybody through our lives now to trust, because now they share Joe's stuff and they call him and Deanna, and every time that they call Joe, he tears up. And he's just like, oh my God, I hope I'm making them proud of me. I hope, they love me again. Like, it's awesome. They'll be sharing his stuff on Facebook. They call him for things, and it's great. And then he's got Caden. You know Caden.
I do. And I love Caden.
Yeah. Caden's very independent too. Caden's very independent. Caden, I don't know, he's 18, I think. Now, or 18, 19, 18. But he's a very independent kid, and he was probably one of the worst ones that would say to Joe, like, well, if God is real, then blah, 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 blah. Like, he would just try really hard to test him on his faith.
Yeah, which is great.
And, Joe didn't understand, and his son Jackson would do the same thing. And then they would really push him about it, and they'd make him angry, and he would just, they'd fight or they would argue about it. And just one day it was just, all of a sudden Jax is putting God bless people on his Facebook, and Caden's coming to church, and It's just,
It's a story. And then Miss Bobby.
and then there's Jaslyn too, because Jaslyn and
that's right.
Jackson are twins. Yep. Yep. Jaslyn, she lives with her girlfriend and her mom. She's a lesbian. I love Jaslyn. She's a very beautiful girl. She's very spunky. She is definitely one too. They're a lot of his kids are like him. They do what they want. They're stubborn. You can't tell them nothing.
They've been so traumatized too, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And Joe, just his willingness to be humble to them and go back and try to make things right, and for the kids to dare to trust him again.
Oh, yeah.
Is incredible.
And like we said to people, and you know, a lot of people ask us too, like, well, how do you guys do it? Like, how'd you do it? And how do your kids? Because Gage, like my son Gage, when Gage grew up, he knew church. He's been to church with me when he was younger, you know. Gage also got into prison. He went to prison when he was 16. He got caught with AK-47s and a bunch of guns. He got charged as an adult. He ended up going to prison to Anamosa when he was 18. And when prison changed him a little bit, you know, he came out not believing in God and doing just angry. He was angry. And so even now, when he got baptized with everybody else, they're just answered prayers, you know. And he was a tough one. My son Aiden's a tough one too, because he grew up Catholic with his dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so he was just like, I don't want nothing to do with it.
But you know, when you see Joe, I was talking to Tommy Tucker.
Yeah.
Love Tommy. And just how all of the family is falling in line.
Yeah, it really is.
And I was like, am I doing something wrong? That I've got 2 kids that are believers and 2 that aren't? That my family, you know?
Right.
And Tommy's like, what did Tommy say? Something like, because you haven't been as deep into the whole, people haven't been able to see your life change like they've seen our lives change.
And that might be a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be a thing, but it's more, I believe with consistency. You're pretty consistent though. I mean, I
feel like I am.
Yeah. They're
just
rebellious. Yeah.
They're naughty, bad people.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. So,
and Bobby, she'll go to church. She wants a Bible. She, wanted a Bible for Christmas. She's there. She just isn't out there.
they're just making their way.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's very okay.
It's definitely made everybody better people.
Yeah.
For sure.
So talk about Gage really quick, about his near death.
So Gage, this July 2 years ago, Gage was really bad. He's a type 1 diabetic. He's also a meth addict. When he was younger, he was running around with the wrong people. And I tried so hard not to have my kids know that I was on drugs, but when I went to treatment, when Gage was younger, I had to tell them I was on drugs, but he was running around with the wrong people. Well, 2 years ago he'd been an addict now for about 10 years, from 16 to 26. He had DKA, which is ketoacidosis, which is a diabetic sickness, which can put you into a coma, which can kill you. So he was very healthy from 6 to 16. And then from 16 on, kids start drinking or whatever. So his blood sugar, his diabetes was pretty bad. So we were in and out of the hospital a little bit here and there. The only time that he was really, really extremely healthy, I would say, in those 10 years was when he was in prison or when he was coming out of prison and wanted to do good. And then he'd fall back. But his brother, he was staying with Aiden and Aiden's girlfriend. And we didn't live that far away. And Aiden called me one day and he said, Mom, Gage is... And by this time, mind you, Gage's addiction had put me into a really dark spot. It was consumed by his addiction.
Oh, I bet.
Like, I found him... I had him on 360. I convinced him to put 360 on his phone. I found him at his storage unit. He had a bunch of stuff in the wintertime with his window broke out. In the driver's seat, his car was on, but it had run out of gas. He had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Like, these are things that, I would have to deal with. And I would just, every time my phone rang, I just thought maybe that was the call. Mm-hmm.
Well, Aiden had called and said, Mom, Gage is sick. Like, I think he might have the flu or something. Well, Aiden didn't really know about Gage's diabetes like that much because Gage had been locked up or not around. And Aiden and him had separate lives. And so I go over, and sure enough, he was DKA'd. He was lethargic. He was throwing up. He couldn't drink anything. He couldn't open his eyes. He couldn't nothing. And this is probably, I don't even know how many times that we had gone through this. And I said, Gage, you have to go to the hospital. I'm not going to the hospital. He couldn't even open his eyes, and he just was refusing. So I had called, and I was like, listen, I know that if I call the ambulance, what can we do for him? And a paramedic told me, unfortunately, or maybe a police officer, I can't remember, but they said, unfortunately, if he can tell us his name, where he's at, and answer another question correctly, if he doesn't want to go, we can't make him go. And that broke my heart. And I'm like, okay, so you can literally tell him you're going to die in 5 minutes, but if he can answer those 3 questions, they can't, it's not their fault. I told Aiden, I said, okay, I'm going to go home and take a shower. I just got off work. I said, I'm going to go home and take a shower. I'm going to try to I'm going to call some people, see what I can do. Because by this time we knew people like at Pathways and Horizons and stuff because we had been clean for a while. And Aiden calls me. He's like, I got him in the hospital. We're on our way. And I'm like, what? Poor Aiden had to pick up his older brother and carry him to the car and put him in the car. And then he drove him to the hospital. And then he had to carry him into the hospital because Gage couldn't walk. I rushed to the hospital. Me and Aiden are in the room. The doctor told Aiden if he would have waited 5 more hours, Gage would have been dead. So he slipped into a coma, and the doctor told us that he had 30% chance of living. They were not at all positive about it at all. They're like, this, wow. I mean, they're taking him for CAT scans to see if his brain's working at this point. Like, they don't know, they're like, he didn't wake up for 5 days.
Wow.
Yep. Me, I every time I'd leave the hospital, like Aiden came up a couple nights and was like, Mom, go home and go to sleep for a little bit. So he stayed with Gage. And one day he just kind of woke up. And it was really surreal. I mean, he had 5 IVs. His eyes were weird. They were like flat, like his eyeballs. It was just, I can't even describe it. It was the most strange. We all knew, like we all thought for sure he wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to make it. And then when he woke up, from the IVs they had, I don't know how they described it, but it was like cartilage, maybe like scar tissue in his arms and in his veins. So he couldn't use his hands for anything. So me and Joe had to give him his diabetes shots, which I think did really good for Joe from being an IV user. Now he has syringes and he's helping this kid give his, insulin to keep him alive. So that was a pretty big test. It was pretty,
Wow.
But
I remember that.
Yeah, so he woke up and it'll be July, it'll be 2 years, but he's went from drugs to alcohol. And I know, I mean, he's getting there. He's had some, a couple of relapses. But the way he talks to me about it, I have so much hope for this kid. Because because when he relapsed, he had called me. He was very upset, crying and very upset, and came home. And you could see the guilt and the shame on him. Which, and I'm a tough lover, but I'm also a person that, you know what? It happened. Get over it. Move on. You could still be out there, but instead you chose to come home.
Yeah.
Instead you chose to come home to eat, go to sleep, rest it, shake it off. Let's move on.
I love your and Joe's relationship with your kids. You just have the hard conversations with them. I'm all tangled up in my corner. I can't get out. But you have the hard conversations, and they know that they can come to you guys with anything.
Yeah.
And you guys won't,
And it's a lot the last couple of years. They've just really realized that they can talk to us about anything. And I'm sure they don't talk to us about everything, obviously. But I know that we're very open about stuff, So engaged. Gage is getting there. I just keep praying about it. Mm-hmm. He's getting there.
We're all a work in progress.
He's definitely been different the last month. So
good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about this earlier off microphone. Joe, I don't know. Joe kind of became a celebrity of sorts. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing. It wasn't his fault either. This is what happened. Okay, so I'm big on social media, obviously, and so when Joe started to really, he put in the work, serving, and we got to know a lot of you guys very fast at Hope City. We were very involved, and we were there, and we were front and center, and Joe's willingness to help and do anything, made him shine, because he truly does do it for the right reasons.
Right.
That's the thing, is Joe doesn't think twice about it. He doesn't think, ooh, what can this... No, Joe does it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And then when things started happening, and then I started to post him on like Facebook or make a TikTok about him or whatever. And it wasn't my intention to be like, hey, look how cool my man is. That's not what I was doing. I post Joe on stuff because if it can just help one person,
yeah,
then we're doing something.
Yeah.
And Joe's story is very raw, and not that anybody else, there's a lot of stories out there like Joe's.
Yes.
A lot. But right off the bat, I was just like, if people even knew, and there's a lot of people that do know, but if people that don't know Joe even knew what God has done, that's all. It's not Joe, it's Jesus. Like, people, and I know my friends sometimes are just like, okay. Like, we have a little joke now that something will happen, I'm like, it's Jesus, and they just smile at me, But the transformation of it, and so I tried to get a story out there to as many people that we even knew. Mm-hmm. Like, you can do it too. If Joe can do it, you can do it.
Isn't that the truth? Because Joe still looks like a thug. I mean, until he smiles.
Right. Well, yeah, he's got all them good teeth now. Yeah.
Well, he's got the tattoos. He's got this long beard. I mean, he doesn't know it. But, if you look at him on the street, you might be like, okay.
Oh, I used to tell him all the time. I'm like, well, you're scary looking.
Yeah.
Like, why are they looking at me? Like, because either A, you're scary looking, or B,
you're hot.
Yeah, you're hot. They think you're attractive. Like, I don't, and then he got these new teeth, and so he just shines all over. But, and he does though. Like, yeah, he people found out who we were very quick.
Mm-hmm. And so many guys show up at Rise Up, and they're like, oh, I know Joe. I used to get high with Joe.
Yeah.
It's like, have you been high with everybody in this room?
Everybody. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is, though. Just, I put his story out there really fast, and he did, he's out there helping people, and he's out there doing all that.
Yeah.
So.
He is. He's, I don't know. I don't know what to say about Joe. I just admire him a lot, and he's such an example. His story is just the one you love to hear,
Yeah.
So we talked about this, like I said earlier. Did you ever feel like, yeah, he's not that big of a deal? Or did you ever, because we were talking about like Bob when he was a cop, and oh, thank you for your service. You're fabulous. And he is, yes. And part of me wanted to say, do you know what it's like being married to a cop?
Absolutely.
I wanted to draw it all back to myself. Like, you know what it's like to raise your kids by yourself, to have to go to every soccer practice because your husband is working, and just all of that.
I know exactly what you mean.
When he came overcame alcoholism, it was like, oh, Bob, and I was like, do you know what this clown was like to live with
you
the
almost
last
want to be
4
like,
years?
He wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for me. Sometimes you're like, what?
No. I want a little credit for all the crap.
I used to say all the time, because Joe has a big personality like I do too. And so I used to be like, oh my gosh, it's the Joe show. It's the Joe show. Like, everything's about Joe, like.
It was.
Yeah. And so then when all this stuff happened, and this was before, everything was about Joe. Everything's about Joe. Well, when he changed his life and got saved, it was hard for me to be like, this is the Joe show, because he wasn't making it about him. He wasn't trying to.
Yeah.
He was literally all about Jesus.
Yeah. I believe
He's
that.
so in love with Jesus. And he'd tell people, this isn't me, guys. This is Jesus. And I remember the first thing he read was something about pride, about not being prideful. It was a sin. Don't be prideful, whatever. So even today, he had a big thing about somebody was like, I'm so proud of you. He'd be like, don't be proud of me. Like, he was so upset. Like, he didn't want people to be proud of him because he thought that he wouldn't, be everything that Jesus wanted him to be if people were proud of him.
Don't look at me. Look at Jesus.
Yeah, and he still to this day is like that,
He does that.
Yeah, he does it a lot. And but he does, and I think he gets so on fire for Jesus, and then when he can help somebody, it intensifies it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more back here going, no, I'm not doing none of that. I'm not doing none of that. Because I think the trauma of him trapping our houses out and me doing everything from the kids to the daily house stuff to feeding the streets to dealing with this person or dealing with that person or helping this person. Like, I did so much and was never appreciated for it.
Yep.
I was never appreciated for it. So, like, even I gotta tell you something. So the other day, we're getting a new washer, and Joe said something like, and I've always my kids have done their own laundry since they were kids. You need to learn how to do it. I've always taught, like, Gage has done his laundry since he was 12. So has Aiden, Bobby. They do their own laundry. They clean up after themselves. They do their own everything, And Joe's like, and I make Joe do his own laundry now. Because I used to do his laundry. I used to do my laundry, his laundry. I used to do everything.
Everybody's laundry.
Everybody's
Bring your laundry over.
I used to clean up after everybody. I used to do everything. And when I got clean, I said, I'm not your mama. You can do it yourself. You don't appreciate me, So I stopped doing it. And it was funny because the other day he's like, hey, can you put some laundry in when the washer gets here? And I kind of looked at him. I was like, no.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. You can do it yourself. I still like to give. Me and Joe actually have a lot of fun.
Oh, you do? You have fun wherever you go.
We do. We have a lot of fun. At home, we do a lot of crap talking to each other. We do. And that's just, and he knows that's my love language.
Yeah.
Is laughter and humor. And, we do have a lot of fun.
And I think, I know, like, in our marriage, I'm the go-getter. I'm the one that's involved with all the things at church, and Bob isn't. And part of me thinks sometimes, like, I must be a better Christian than my husband, or more spiritual. And we're just different people.
Yeah, well,
way different people.
And I thought it was bad. Like, at first, when Joe's like, he's in it 100%. And, I help with Rise Up when I want to go, whatever. Like, and it's not that I have commitment issues. It's that I have taken care of people for years.
Yeah.
Like, and I tell people this, like, I've been nothing but responsible my whole life, and Joe's had absolutely zero responsibility his whole life. So let him have the responsibility now. I just want to do it. I want to serve when I want to serve. I've gotten a lot better now, but
that all makes sense, though.
Right.
In the course of your whole story, that makes perfect sense. You explain it so well.
Yeah, I just want to do what I want. Like, leave me alone. I just want to relax and have peace. And that's what it is. And Joe he's a go-getter like that. But I've noticed that in our church, though, a lot of couples I know, there's always one that's the extreme, and there's always one that's just kind of
in the background.
Yeah, do what they want,
Well, I feel like if I was married to someone like me, there would be no hope for us. I mean, I would kill him.
Oh yeah, I get
probably.
that.
And don't use that against me in court. How'd your husband die? I don't know.
Yeah, Dateline episode. But Joe's a hard person. Don't get me wrong. Joe's a hard person to be with. He's been a very difficult person to be with for a long time, and now he's saved and stuff. Obviously, he makes it a lot more easier now.
Yeah.
He makes it a lot more easier, and I feel like this is what I mean. Obviously, we all have gone through for a reason why we went through what we went through. God put us through stuff for a reason, and no, this is why. This is why. I can talk to people all day long about domestic violence and. I mean, there was a moment that me and Joe were so bad that he got in the bathtub because his back hurt, and I moved all my stuff out of the house.
Oh.
I moved everything out. Before he got out of the bathtub, he come out and all my stuff was gone. But I always go back because I think, do you know what Stockholm Syndrome is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like, I think I had something like that.
Yeah.
And you know who told me I had it? Joe!
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But, you know, we are a rare case. We really are. Like, not a lot of people go through what we went through. And Joe, we're in this connected group for Q. Q has this group on Monday nights. It's for 8 weeks called Connected. And I just wanted to do it to see how we were really connected, you know, and we're actually doing very well in it. And we had to look at each other and we had to tell each other 2 qualities that we really loved in each other. Janice, I had no idea what Joe was going to say about me.
What did he say?
Well, because Joe has a hard time communicating. That's Joe's, that's his weakness. That's the worst thing. And it's not communicating with other people. Joe has a hard time communicating in a relationship. So Joe's one of those people that could sit there and think all these wonderful things about you, but he's not going to tell you. Mm-hmm. He'll tell somebody else when you're not there. Or he'll talk about you good when you're not around, but he never tells you, you know, and people need that. Mm-hmm. But we're in there and he says, I'm just like, you go first, you know? And he said,
See if I'm going to be nice.
yeah, he's like, I appreciate your honesty. And I said, what? He's like, I go, what do you mean? He goes, you don't tell me what I want to hear. You tell me what I need to hear. And you do it. He said, you do it to everybody. He said, you don't put up with the bull crap. You're a tough lover. You let people know what they need to hear. And you don't lie about stuff like, oh yeah, that's great. No, you're like, no, that's not okay. He said, and I just kind of looked at him like, I never thought that would be
a pro.
a good quality you liked.
What was the other thing?
My humor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my laughter. He said my laughter, my humor. Just, I'm unhinged sometimes, and he apparently likes it. So
You are.
I
Fun
know.
just follows you.
I can't help it.
Well, that's good. We need people like
And
you
I think
in our
as a young
world.
age, when my mom died, you know, I really, my mom died, my dad died, and then we lost my nephew.
Oh.
Yeah, Dayton Gage. We lost him 4 or 5 years ago. He was diagnosed with AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia. He had 2 stem cell transplants. One of them, the first one almost took him out. The second one was successful, but from the stem cell transplant, and I hope I'm saying all this right, but he got graft house disease is what took him.
How old was he?
14.
Oh, man.
Yep, he would have, this March was his birthday, he would have been 18.
That's hard.
And I love Dayton. Dayton was a different kind of kid. He was funny. He was smart. He was an old soul. Mm-hmm. Like I don't even know how to explain it. He was just an old soul. And so I don't even know where I was going with that, but the loss of, you know, everybody is traumatizing to you. So that's where I was going with it. Yeah. Humor is how I deal with a lot of stuff. I'm not one, don't sit next to me in a funeral. Don't put me on speakerphone if I call you. You know, I'm the worst.
Oh my gosh,
You're the
hilarious.
worst. I'm the worst. And I just realized that like life is so short, Janice.
Yeah.
Life is so short. And yes, I take things seriously. My bills are paid. You know, I am more unhinged than my children. I terrorize my kids.
In a good way.
In a good way. I am always trying to play pranks on them, and we're always laughing.
Are.
I know, we're always laughing. We have a good time. And I think, and this is the best for me, like, I just want to see my kids laugh because I cause so much turmoil on them. I just want to have them remember me this way and not,
for sure.
You know? And we have a good time. We really do.
Well, and I always, whenever things are hard, I always think about God is writing a story.
Yeah.
You know, how many people would Joe, brought to Christ if it wasn't for being in the depths of that mess?
Right.
Because people can see, oh, I knew them before. Look at him now. Maybe I can do the same thing.
Right.
Maybe God can change me too. So.
And that's why I put that out there. And, you know, Joe has, and I'm just going to say this, and I probably shouldn't talk about it, but I'm going to a little bit, is we have, especially Joe, and I do too, but we have some people that like to talk not nice about us. You know, we have haters, as you say. We do. And I just, like I told Joe, like, it's been people close, but, and Joe this is how I know that it's not fake, is Joe, I'll be like, that's terrible. Like, I'll be upset at somebody, and Joe said, all you gotta do is pray for him, Kara. This is how Joe talks. You just have to love them. No matter what they're doing to you. They're doing bad things to you. They're talking bad on you. He said, this is all he says is, we have to love them. Mm-hmm. We have to love them. Like Jesus tells us to love them, and we have to pray for them.
Do you ever want to just like punch him and say, shut up?
Yeah.
When he makes sense like that?
Sometimes I'm like, okay, listen, back to reality.
Oh, well, every solid Christian needs a partner like you.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything else you want to share about your story before we wrap this show up?
Well, I guess the only thing I want to say is, like, if we can do it, anybody can literally do it. And it all stems from not too long ago. I mean, you know this person. I'm not going to say their name or whatever, but like, he was talking about his addiction. He's like, I don't know why I can't stop. I don't know why I can't stop. And I said, well, it all stems from somewhere. It's a behavior disability. So it all stems from somewhere why you use drugs. And I think that we all focus more on the recovery part of it than the psychology part of it. As I use drugs, I started getting into drugs because, well, I mean, I was never peer pressured, but I did it, whatever, but I used it because I was masking and I was self-medicating from abandonment. I have abandonment issues. You do? I have trust issues. I have trauma issues. I have a lot of issues that stems from my drug use, which Jesus is who saved me from all that. And like I said, I don't want to give people false hope of, me and Joe, our story is so crazy. And not a lot of people come out at the end together. And some people do.
With violence, you don't want to encourage, just stay,
Yeah, no. And I just, before when you say, oh, well, Jesus is never. Yes, Jesus is the one who's did it. Jesus is the one who brought us here. Jesus is the one who put us through all. And now looking back through a lot of stuff that I lived through, because I apparently had extra lives, it was Jesus. Yeah. Like, it's all God. It's all God, and it's a great story, and I don't know, I just hope that, like I told Joe, I said, Janice asked me to be a podcast, and I would love to, because I hope it reaches somebody.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
I hope it reaches somebody and saves somebody, because and Joe wants to save everybody, and you can't save them all. You can't save them all, but you can just tell them your story, I guess.
You just put your little drop in the bucket, and one day the bucket will overflow.
Yeah.
Your drop may be the last one or the first one. Nobody knows for sure.
Yeah. But now, it's great. Like, even now, I was going to leave FedEx, and I was scared to leave FedEx. I've been there for 5 years. I was scared to make a different career. I'm 45. I thought to myself, I'm 45 years old. How am I going to change careers? And my friend's mom, which I rekindled with all my friends, by the way.
The good friends.
All the friends that never used, drugs, all the friends that have been my childhood friends. They really love me unconditionally. And it took me a minute after, getting clean to have the courage to even message them like, hey, because, like I said, Tommy died. My friend Nicole had a son who's disabled. I wasn't there for any of that. Nash, I am now. I mean, Nash is the best, but I wasn't there for those things. And those things, and they've told me they've forgiven me. They've told me, I bet you've seen them on my Facebook. All the girls that I post on my Facebook are the girls I'm talking about. And they're great people. They're amazing women. And I'm so grateful for the people in my life. I'm so grateful that all these people, were still here with me.
Yeah.
Because, not a lot of people get that. People just shun people and then they don't come back to them. I don't know where I was going with that either. I could do this all day, Janice.
I know. Well, Bob said we have 43 hours we could talk, but I don't know if anyone would listen. No. We'll have a part 2 sometime when something else happens in your life.
Oh, yeah. This is where I was going with that. Okay,
here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Circle back.
Yep. So my friend's mom said, Kara, I was young when I was 45. And it kind of just stuck with me, I'm like, oh. So I prayed, and I never really, I prayed for things before and it never really happened or whatever, But I prayed for things when I really got into the Word, and I really gave a lot of my struggles and a lot of my stresses to God. And I really prayed on things, and things happen. You know, like I can honestly say, like, I was sitting here praying about a new job. I'm praying about a new job. Like, I just need to get a new job. Then I had a hysterectomy. So the job I was going to take, I couldn't because I had to be off work. And my friend had brought over some stuff for Oliver. And she just happened to go, hey, we're hiring. And it was in healthcare, which I wanted to be in healthcare.
Wow.
And I dreamt in my mind of being in healthcare and being and having a different job and doing this. And like the visions in my brain is exactly where I am at right now.
Wow.
It's so amazing. The people are the women, because it's all women in this clinic. I mean, it's not by choice. We're awesome. But I love the people I work with. I love my job. It's just so, I mean, it can happen. It really can. And you have to change your life. You have to heal. You have to change. And Joe has made me bitter and angry at life, but he's also has now made me a better person of forgiveness. And because I stopped forgiving for a long time, and he's just like, you just gotta love on him, Kara. And I'm just like, I want to punch him in the throat.
I know. It's like, no, I don't have to.
I know. And
I like feeling angry. It's easier.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I don't have to do anything. But he just, I don't know. It's not a phase. It's great. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
And he really does embrace it. And he's just one that goes, though, like, I'll be stressing about something, and he's like, just give it to God. And I'm just like, he's not going to pay to come down here and pay this bill right now. Like, just give it to God. But he's right. Because every time I do, it
works out.
It works out.
It's nice to have a partner that leads you in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, we balance each other out. We really do. I'm unhinged. He's more,
You're fun.
He can be serious.
Not.
Yeah, he can be serious. He's been a lot more. He's been better now since we went to Q's Connected stuff, because I really think he's like come out more. Like we've had a lot more
wonderful.
fun.
I like to give him a little grief.
Oh
here
yeah,
and
well I told him in the car. Well, we were doing some stuff at home, and he had to take the washer out and stuff. And I heard him talking to Gage. Him and Gage were doing it together and cleaning up some stuff. And Joe's like, "Oh, I don't want to do any of this stuff." And I go, "Okay."
Negativity.
I said, I bet if Q or Margaret or Janice or somebody from the church, he's looking at me like, I go, I'm gonna call Margaret and make her call you and do it. And he just starts laughing.
Gonna tell on you.
Yeah, this is what, this is the fun, realistic stuff that we go through every day. We have a great time.
Yeah.
We have a great time.
Well, can I wrap this up with a prayer?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, God, what a fun time this has been with Kara. We all need a Kara in our lives. She has just portrayed perfectly what pain and trauma can do in a life, and how she has turned it over to you and healed and done the work to get through that is just a great testament to what you can do in anybody's life. I just pray, that her story will touch people, and I know that it will be, because you don't use anything, or you don't not use anything. So God, we give you the glory for Kara, and I'm just grateful for her and her friendship. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, honey.